All right, here we go on a Friday night, late night happy hour, late night pod, Cofield and Company. Dave Kokins here, Adam Candy. Lots to get to. We could do hour plus probably on the Raiders and COVID. We can do certainly an hour plus on the election. So we'll probably do a little bit on that. I know Dave is into politics a little bit. Candy certainly is. But Friday nights, we really concentrate on football and football picks. So, hey, Kokin, I wanted to ask you coming out. Well, first of all, did you keep an eye on both of these games tonight, San Diego State, San Jose State, and then Boise and BYU?
Yeah, I watched all three games because the NC State-Miami game was really a lot of fun. San Jose State was very impressive. That's an absolutely amazing job that he's done because, I mean, San Jose State was an absolute doormat program when he arrived there, and they're pretty good now. And BYU just they toyed with Boise State. Boise was really beat up. First string quarterback's out. Second string quarterback gets hurt right away, and it was just downhill from there. Nice win for BYU, though.
All right, so what do we think of BYU now if they go unbeaten and the national picture, Dave? In terms of getting in the college football playoff,
they'll play Cincinnati in the Group of Five game.
They won't let them in.
Nah, they're not going to let them in.
Ken, do you agree?
I think Cincinnati's got a better case than BYU in the end. Yeah, I'm with them.
Yeah. Could BYU compete with, one of the four best teams? Well, we certainly don't know who the four best teams are yet, but could BYU compete with that level?
Compete?
That's a no.
Maybe.
That's a no.
Maybe. No, I mean, they're double-digit dogs against that level.
Yeah.
That's not really what you want in a playoff. I mean, that's just the way it is. I think Cincinnati would be in the same general category. I mean, you put them on the field with Clemson there. I can't make a number. I don't have my stuff in front of me, but it's at least 2 touchdowns.
What do you think, Andy? BYU even competitive, or we're talking like 11 to 14 point dog?
No, I'm with Dave on the number, and I'm with BYU. Look, if this was going to be the one game tonight where we got to look at what they could do against top quality competition, I mean, you ended up with Boise with its third string quarterback in by the middle of the first quarter, and it just was no competition whatsoever. So, we're going to get to the end of the season and have absolutely no idea, what BYU really is. And I mean, Cincinnati's got at least a little bit more where you can look at them playing SMU, but I agree with Dave in terms of the number.
And to be honest with you, I mean, let me see BYU and Cincinnati in that Group of Five game. That's a great game.
Yeah.
And it could be for the, the non-Power 5 championship. Nothing wrong with that. I'd rather see that than, one of those teams in the Final Four just gets blasted by Clemson. That's, to me, that's not that exciting. I know people love that George Mason Cinderella type thing, but let me get the 4 best teams in, and these are not. They're not among the 4 best teams. It's that simple. They're really good. But they're not among the top 4 teams. And it's the same story. Central Florida a few years ago, really good team, not one of the 4 best teams in the country, not national champions.
All right, San Jose State. Just to build on that, so San Jose State winds up beating San Diego State straight up. Anyone who follows UNLV football, when you see, and Dave just said, Brent Brennan and the job he's done. When coaches come into the league like this, and he'll be gone soon. Oh, yeah. If he continues to, if he gets them to a winning mark, you start to think UNLV football over the years, like what is so impossible about hiring a coach who can do this? Consider what San Jose State is working with. That school does not give 2 shits about sports.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever been to the stadium. Have you guys been to the stadium? Candy probably has. Have you been there? Yeah. It's neat. I mean, it's really a cool stadium, and they are redoing it, to a certain extent. But I mean, it's one of, frankly, it's one of the lousiest stadiums out there. It really is. They're not working with much. True. Hell, they before the season they sent them off like 300 miles away to avoid COVID issues, and they can be a 500 program. Why is it that hard?
And they're going to be more than a 500 program.
You know what I mean?
Better than 500 this year, yeah.
Yeah, they'll be 4-1 after next week because they're playing the Rebels. No, UNLV should be able to do this. By the way, one quick final comment on BYU/Cincinnati. That's why there should be an 8-team playoff, because I don't think they're in the top 4, but they deserve a chance. They deserve a chance.
Right. And if you're an outstanding group of 5, you could certainly slot in at the 8 or 12 or 16.
Absolutely. Yep.
And in this case, you probably have 2 teams in BYU and Cincinnati. So they, that deserve to get a shot at somewhere in the field. So I have a feeling this year's going to be really frustrating trying to pick the 4, because you're going to have so many uneven numbers. I mean, at this point, the friggin' Pac-12, who is Oregon going to go 4-0? I mean,
no,
there's going to be issues on the other side. They're going to have games canceled. We've already got 2 games down. Utah, I don't know if Utah's going to play all year. I know Cal's really frustrated. Utah and Arizona got canceled today, and Cal and Washington's off. Cal, they're so annoyed there because it wasn't really a Pac-12 or a school thing. It was a county thing. And like a lot of folks are just like, hey, I don't know if this is going to work with a county restriction. So how many – the best Pac-12 team, how many games are going to get in there? They were only planning on playing 6.
Yeah. So it's going to be Clemson and Ohio State, and then 2 teams with losses, I suppose. Maybe could very well be the winner of tomorrow's Florida-Georgia game. Might get a slot. And I don't know who gets the other slot. It won't be a Big 12 team, wouldn't think. Maybe Temple. No, I'm kidding.
Probably Bama.
How bad are things for Temple, by the way? The quarterback's out. The best running back decided earlier this week, I'm opting out. He doesn't want to play anymore. He's going to and he's not opting out for the draft. He's transferring. They had a linebacker and a place kicker playing cornerback on the scout team this week. They're out of players. Good luck against SMU tomorrow. I don't figure we were going to talk about that game, so I figured I'd throw it in here because, I mean, unless SMU pulls a no-show, they're going to kill that team tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, you want to start going down to college football board?
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll start looking at it. I'm actually going to start with the biggest game. Make sure we're spending time on the most important games out there. Candy, I'll start with you. What do you think of Clemson and Notre Dame? Obviously, Clemson's down without Trevor Lawrence. They looked like ass last week in the first half. They stormed back in the second against BC.
I think you start off by saying that the talent level at Alabama and at Clemson is just a notch above the talent level everywhere else. So when we talk about the step from Lawrence to DJU, yeah, of course it's a step down because Trevor Lawrence is that kind of kid. But, DJ settled right down last week and ended up having a pretty solid game and one of the highest rated passers in college football last week. And I don't have any concerns about Clemson being able to put it together this week. On the Notre Dame side, I know what the offensive line is. I know what the defense is. I haven't seen it from the quarterback. And without seeing it from the quarterback, I don't see how Notre Dame is going to make this game a 5.5 point game.
Look, maybe they can throw some stuff at the kid that he hasn't seen. He's got a ton of talent. I mean, if you're projecting future number 1 overall picks 2 or 3 years down the road, depends on whether they redshirt him this. With that rule, he could be a redshirt if he doesn't play in 5 games.
That's a good point. How amazing is that? We might get to see this kid, for 3 games, and he still retains his eligibility for next year.
Yep, which means he could play 2 or 3 more years and then be the number 1 overall pick. It's just amazing how they get these players. Well, it's not amazing. They're a great program, and he's a great coach. He looked good. I mean, he's got a tremendous gun. Somebody said reminded him of a college version of Dante Culpepper. Not a bad comparison. Where I look at this game, I power rate the game. I did knock off a couple of points because he's still not Trevor Lawrence, and he's facing a good defense. And I actually power rated it at 3, but I don't believe my numbers. And I don't power rate the coach into my overall power rating. Sweeney versus Kelly. I mean, Brian Kelly just doesn't win big games. He just doesn't. And Sweeney does. I think that's probably worth a few points. So I can't go against Clemson here.
Any questions on this game in the chat room at all? Yeah, I already bet Clemson. I think it was on Tuesday to jump on that before the number possibly changes. So we see any change tomorrow? You see it moving at all? It's been 5.5 all week. So does it go in any game day direction?
I think it'd get to 6.
Okay.
It's going to be Clemson money. Because the market is not as unsophisticated as it used to be, and the bettors already know, hey, this kid might not be Trevor Lawrence, but he's pretty good. And let's face it, you really want to play. The market's going to look at it and say, you really want to play against Clemson in the big game? It's a great opportunity for Notre Dame. I mean, the Irish can push Clemson out of the playoffs with a win here. They could become the 3rd team behind Ohio State and Alabama. I think I left out Alabama when I was chatting before. But I just don't think it happens.
Candy, where are you on Michigan and Indiana? We'll start with you. Indiana's at home. Upset victory. Upset victory in week 1 against Penn State. Outgained badly last week. Didn't play that well in the first quarter against Rutgers and rolled from there. Indiana's getting 3.5 against Michigan coming to town.
Yeah, I'll leave it to Dave in terms of the numbers, but I'll say for damn sure that I actually think Indiana has a couple of advantages here. I think Penix is clearly the better quarterback in this game.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I think once Penix settled down, I like what he's been doing, and I think overall, this is the best team Indiana's rolled out there in a long time. You're looking at potentially the first top 10 rating for this team if they win this game in the last 50 years. Not bad, right? The loss last week for Michigan is rough. I'm not fading them based on that. I actually just think Indiana is a better team.
No, I think Michigan's a better team, but might mean more to Indiana at this point because Michigan, I think I mentioned this in the afternoon show, Michigan's season is now Ohio State. That's it. That there's nothing else for them. And I question their motivation here. Indiana should never have beaten Penn State. I mean, that was a complete fluke of a win. But it counts, and they took care of business against Rutgers. So, they are staring at some big stuff by Indiana standards if they can win this game. Michigan on paper, but from the neck up, I think Indiana might have a real good chance in this game. I didn't play it because my number does say Michigan's supposed to win, but I don't know. Harbaugh, it's not working out, is it?
Dave, I don't understand what you're saying on Michigan, that all they've got left is Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State and they're able to put together the rest of the Big Ten slate and be dominant, they can actually make it, can't they?
I mean, it would take a miracle. And first of all, they'd have to beat Ohio State, which they never do anyway. And they're probably not going to this year. But they'd need a combination of other things as well. They need somebody else to lose outside of the Alabama, Clemson, and who am I leaving out? Triumvirate.
Well, you were saying Florida, Georgia.
Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State, obviously.
Right.
I guess
they'd beat Ohio State. If they beat Ohio State, and they can actually, I think it's really important. They actually need to root for Wisconsin to come back from all the COVID stuff.
Oh yeah.
So if they could beat Wisconsin, the rest of their schedule with Rutgers, Penn State, and Maryland. I mean, if at the end of the year they're sitting with wins over Wisconsin and Ohio State, then they're in the conversation.
I suppose. Yeah. I hope maybe Harbaugh can sell them on that. But that was pretty bad last week. I mean, Michigan State's just not very good. And that's a horrible loss. And I don't know. I mean, I can't, I'm not there. I can't say why Harbaugh can't get the best out of this team, but they have clearly not played to their capabilities under this coach. And they don't win. They're worse in big games than anybody. When's the last time they won a game that mattered?
They don't have a good history playing other top 10 teams. We know that.
Ooh.
Yeah. But I just want to say that the 3 and 4 hole in the playoffs, if Clemson and Alabama hold, and by the way, Clemson almost lost last week. I mean, the excuse would have been, hey, no Trevor Lawrence. But if Clemson and Alabama hold, the other 2 spots they're going to be intriguing because there really is no one. Am I missing someone who's the 3rd and 4th team that are like a lock to just steamroll through the rest of the season?
Oh, I think Ohio State is. I don't think anybody's beaten Ohio State.
Well, that's the test. So then there's a fourth spot, and the problem is Michigan needs the win over Ohio State to be the fourth spot.
Yeah, the fourth spot. It's showbiz. It probably would have been Wisconsin, but that's probably not going to happen now. Wisconsin's loaded. That quarterback. This is the best quarterback they've had, and I don't know when. And it's a real tough break for them.
Hey, Dave, do me a favor. Pop in and out of the room real quick and see if because we're kind of getting max headroom on your audio.
All right.
I don't know if it's going to fix it. What do you think, Candy? Is Dave selling short the rest of the country and the possibility that other teams can step up?
Other teams, maybe, but I don't. It's not Michigan for me, and it's not just last week. Like I think that Minnesota win looked a lot better 2 weeks ago than it looks right now. The way they were getting run around by Maryland for a while in that game, like I don't place much faith in that. It has to play out the right way with Florida and Georgia, right? Like it's got to play out the right way for Florida and Georgia, and then one of them going in there and probably getting beaten out by Alabama, and so that you've got a couple of losses on sitting on Florida and on Georgia. So that's the best case scenario for a team. But let's talk about this realistically. Who is right now, if Wisconsin's going to be out of the discussion, and remember, they got to play every game from here on out to be eligible. Who else is in the discussion, right? Like, because I think those three teams are clear with Clemson, Alabama, and Ohio State, as much as everybody's probably tired of hearing it. Beyond that, Georgia, I think, probably has the best claim in terms of up and down the roster if Stetson Bennett plays well. Florida's offense is dynamic, but, the loss to A&M, I think that might end up being too much.
Yeah, Big 12's in a tough position because pretty much everyone's had two losses. Oklahoma State. Yeah. My whole thing is if we're going to talk about motivation, you don't want to just write off a team. That's the carrot. The carrot is go beat, one of the top three programs in the country, and that gets you back in a season. So,
no, I hear you on that. Yeah.
Dave's back in.
How's this? Is this any better?
That's about the same.
Okay.
We'll have to fix it next time around. No big deal. Some other games out there. Yeah, what do we do with these big spreads in the Big Ten? Ohio State 39.5 now, up from 38 against Rutgers, and Penn State 26.5 against Maryland.
Go ahead, Candy. I'm going to play around with my microphone for a second.
That sounds good. Personally, for me, I don't want anything to do with either of them. I don't like getting involved with these enormous ones. I'll leave it to you on Rutgers, Cofield, since you're the guy. I think Maryland can at least score enough to make it interesting. And beyond that, I really wouldn't want to get involved.
Yeah, I think Rutgers is better, but Ohio State can do whatever it wants. Now, if the game gets into the fourth quarter and the number's not covered, Rutgers can score 10 or 14 points. I don't even know if they can do that because their quarterback play is still absolute shit. Maybe Ohio State takes the foot off the gas pedal, but I think Ohio State can breeze out to, 38, 42, 45-point lead and probably cover. And I agree with you on Penn State, on Maryland. I actually think Maryland is dangerous enough at quarterback, explosive enough, and they can score that they could be inside the number. So we'll see. We'll see. And again, Dave talked about it today on the show. It's a lot of this is, week to week when you had a hope of being the third or fourth team in the national championship picture, and then you lose two games like Penn State did. How fired up are the kids? I mean, this is a really challenging season too. I mean, if anything, losses will break your spirit, but it's also the giant pain in the ass of dealing with all the COVID stuff. Like at some point, our kids just like, this fucking sucks, man. Like I'm not jacked up for the game. There's no crowd here. That's the other one. I'm telling you, like I didn't realize how ridiculous it is. UNLV, and it's a mega stadium, but so is Penn State. UNLV had 2,000 people at that Reno game. Dave, you would not believe. It's a morgue. Like I don't know where the players get energy from it. It just felt like a practice the entire game. And you've got all these big time programs around the country with 90,000 seats, 100,000 seats in the case of Penn State. I mean, there's just going to be games where they're like, I'm just not feeling it today.
Yeah, but the fake crowd was really into it.
That's better.
This is better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, I turned off my box and I'm going with the internal computer microphone. So hopefully that's better. On the Penn State game, I completely agree from the standpoint of it means nothing. Now, with Michigan, maybe I'm exaggerating how little it means, but I'm not with Penn State. They're 0-2. They're out of it. And
if I'm an NFL prospect on Penn State, I'd opt out. I'd opt out right now. Don't take a chance. These are meaningless games. On paper, Penn State kills Maryland. They can put up 50 in this game, but I have my doubts as to whether they give us a knot right there at this point. And Maryland, the kid can play quarterback. They can score some points. They can't stop anything. But maybe Maryland can hang around in the game. Money's coming in at Penn State, though.
All right. Bouncing to a couple more games in the Big Ten before we move on. Minnesota 7 against Illinois. What do we think of Minnesota? We fired up about Minnesota. At least Illinois fought last week. They've had COVID issues, especially at quarterback with Peters. What do you think, Dave? Illinois 7 in that game against Minnesota.
Now, Minnesota wakes up here, I think. I think Minnesota's just too talented for Illinois. Illinois is a bad football team. They got a lot of lucky bounces last year. And they're probably not – that generally just doesn't happen 2 years in a row. I think the Gophers might get them tomorrow. And Minnesota, as opposed to a couple of the other teams in the Big Ten we talked about, they're out of anything important as well. But the one thing I will say about Fleck is we know he can motivate. And I think he'll find a way to get his team to want to play tomorrow.
Candy, anything?
I have zero to add to that game. That's not a game I've spent any time looking at.
All right. Another Big Ten game I wanted to mention, Northwestern. Northwestern is a favorite, not always the best bet. Do we even know what we have here in Nebraska? Nebraska getting 3.5 at Northwestern.
I mentioned last week that Fitzgerald, he's just a fabulous coach. And this year he's got material to work with. I think it's a close game, but I think Northwestern might get him at home here. Don't think it's a spot I want to lay the points, though, because Nebraska's talented. But they're up against it schedule-wise. I mentioned before the season, they could be the best 4-4 team out there when all the dust settles at the end of the season. And now they lost one of those games, so I guess 3-4 or 4-3 or whatever. But they're getting there. I just don't know that they're ever going to be a real powerhouse in the Big Ten because, how do you compete with Ohio State? And it's a tough sell from that standpoint.
Crazy 9 a.m. start with USC and Arizona State. Southern Cal Lane 11. Again, what kids are having to deal with now. Empty stadiums, no energy. In this case, what time are these guys getting up? 4 a.m? I don't know. 9 a.m. start, I understand it. They're trying to appeal to TV, basically screw the fans locally. What do you think, USC 11?
I think it's too high. I like the defense for Arizona State. I think that this is a great job for Herm Edwards, and I think he fits really well in college because he's a rah-rah guy for sure. I'm not sure how well that translated in the NFL, but I think it really sells in college. And I know I mentioned this afternoon, and I've mentioned it on a few different shows this week. How many times have we gone into a season with USC getting all this hype? This is the year. And then they fall right on their face. And it wouldn't shock me if it happens again.
Candy, you in on the Pac-12 or you want to keep rolling?
No, I want to just add one thing to what Dave said because it's exactly what I thought when I started looking at this game and saw the Keaton Slovis hype and thinking to myself, we've been here. Like, we've done this before. And if there's any program where it scares me, it would be SC. So Daniel's a talented kid for ASU. We'll see what can do in week 1. But, yeah, 11 feels a little heavy.
And one of our commenters, viewers, saying crappy weather tomorrow, too. So 9 o'clock in the morning. 9 o'clock.
I don't know if that's an advantage for either team. Neither one of them sees any rain. Yeah. Neither do we. Are we going to get some of this rain?
Right? Anyone who doesn't live in Vegas, God almighty, we need it.
It's 200 days.
Ridiculous.
We've had 200 straight days with no rain, which is, of all years, business is bad enough. Local businesses are suffering enough. So on top of that, this is the 1 year where you basically have not needed to get your car washed because it hasn't rained all year. So even the car washers are getting screwed.
What do you guys? Do we get an election winner or rain first?
I'm going to go with the rain. If we're supposed to get some rain following West Coast rain, I don't think this election's getting certified for a little while. They're going to do recounts. There's nothing wrong with doing recounts. It's perfectly within their rights to ask for recounts, and so I don't think the election gets certified for at least another week or so. I don't know how long recounts take.
Yeah. About right.
Trees and ODB going with it. We'll get snow before an election winner. Aaron setting the number at rain minus 200. Back at plus 180. All right, Dave, what's going to happen in Georgia, Florida? Georgia, not really great on offense. Florida, obviously explosive. Forget who we had on the other day. I forgot who we had on the other day who was like, unfortunately, because Florida can score on almost every possession, Georgia has got to be perfect. Like, they can't make freaking mistakes because while they have to grind up and down the field because their quarterback play is so-so, Florida can, like that, light up the scoreboard.
Well, the flip side of it is Florida can't defend. They're not a good defensive team, and Georgia's going to run the football. And what Georgia can do is play some ball control. That'll help the quarterback. They don't want to put it on him to win the game. And but the other side of it is that Georgia's got defensive injuries, and you don't need that against this Florida team. This is an interesting game from a variety of standpoints. Number one, it's a great rivalry. Number two, it's tremendously important as far as the bowl picture is concerned. And number three is that I think this is going to be one of those games where there's more tickets on Georgia, but the sharper money, and I'm not on either side here, so this is just information. The sharper money's on Florida in the game, for what that's worth.
All right. If people want to throw out a couple of college games, we'll get to a few more. We're going to get to the NFL. We want to talk about the election, so hustle up, throw some games out, and we'll get to them here in just 1 second. I am interested in, well, not anymore. The number's getting out of control. Tennessee is now down to 1 against Arkansas.
Yeah.
I think this guy, Sam Pittman's awesome, but have people overreacted?
No. Because the reaction is more to the other side. Tennessee has a multitude of problems. I've got a very good contact. I have decent contacts at some schools, and that's one of the best for me. And they've got some real issues. They did fire one of the assistants already. Looks like let's just say that the practices haven't been going smoothly. They don't have, from what I'm told, they're already looking for a graduate transfer to play quarterback next year because, well, Guarantano hasn't gotten it done. And the guys they've got in back of them doesn't look like they've got a lot of faith. And I'm blanking on the freshman's name, but he apparently hasn't been wowing anybody in practice. Pruitt's not going to lose his job, okay? Because Fulmer hired him, and Fulmer's not going to make himself look like an idiot by firing him. So he's going to be back. But Tennessee is not a team I would want to play right now. Now, that said, on paper they ought to beat Arkansas, but the game's not played on paper, and I think Arkansas might have a better attitude right now.
Fun times, huh? Remember the entire war to get Pruitt in there? So if they ever do fire him and they get a buyout, you know who's responsible to pay the buyout? Doc Travis. Clay Travis better pay part of the buyout because that was one of the bigger media storm or social media pushes ever for a coach, and he got his way. The fans got their way, and at this point, the returns on Jeremy Pruitt have been kind of crap.
Yeah, what's funny is that this, oddly enough, maybe it's a good thing that there's not 105,000 people in the stands in Knoxville this year. You remember when we used to talk to Coach Fulmer? Because when he was there, we used to have him as a regular guest, and he talked about, and that's when they were really good. They were contending for national championships. And he'd say, he says, none of our fans work because they arrive in boats. Like on Tuesday, they just hang out for the whole week. And it was great. I mean, Tennessee was such a great program. I hope they get back to that sometime because it's good for the game to have a terrific program at Tennessee. But these are hard times for the Vols.
Game of the season for Liberty against Virginia Tech. Can they compete? I mean, they got to cover 17. That's it seems manageable. What do you think, Dave?
The spot favors Liberty. Spot definitely favors Liberty because it's the biggest game they've ever played, and Virginia Tech's in a kind of big game conference schedule, conference sandwich. The talent level, Virginia Tech's at another level than Liberty. So if they're ready to play, I just don't think Liberty can stay in there for 4 quarters. Freeze has done a fabulous job there, but they have played absolutely nobody so far, and they're stepping way up in class here. The public likes the dog. The sharper money is on Virginia Tech in this game.
How bad is Colorado? Could UCLA go there and just smash them?
It's getting back the other way. Numbers gotten down to 5 now. And UCLA is USC hype part 2. Because there never is, every year at this time of the season, Candy, you know what I'm saying? Bruins look good this year. And then they go out there and suck. The quarterback is pretty good, and I think he's getting better. They keep saying the defense has improved. I'm not so sure it is. Interesting thing here is Carl Durrell, his first game as coach of the Buffaloes, and of course he was dismissed at UCLA some years back, so I'm sure he'd like to win this. I don't know, though. I think it's a rebuilding season for Colorado. I think this is going to be a real close game. It might be one of the better games of the day, actually. Would not be surprised if this is a game that's one possession goes to the wire, and I would lean Colorado plus the points. I'm not going to bet it, though.
Yeah, just to that point, Dave, last year, UCLA-Cincinnati early in the season was one of the easier money opportunities that there was with the hype on UCLA.
Some repeat questions. Someone's coming in with Michigan, Indiana. I think, Candy, officially, are you on Indiana?
No, I'm not. I'm not playing it. I'm not playing it. I do think if you force me to put something down, then yeah, it'd be Indiana.
And do any of us think that Notre Dame could get routed? I do think they could get routed.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 2-touchdown game. If Clemson gets out early, watch out.
They can't chase. Book's not playing the kind of game that's going to let them chase.
They just don't. Look, the thing I know, I know I've said this a few times. They just don't. I like Book. I think he's going to be a decent NFL quarterback. Not a superstar, but I think he'll play at the next level. But they don't have any speed at the wideouts, and they're going up against lethal speed on defense in this game. It's just not a good matchup for Notre Dame.
And for this one, Georgia, Florida is in Jacksonville. I think the cap is at 20,500. There's like 9,000 tickets on each side. I know it doesn't add up. However else they can fill out the 2,500, but 20,000 around 20,500 at whatever Jack Stadium was called.
Somebody mentioned the Washington State. Oh, good. I wanted to talk about this game. This might be the best game of the day. Washington State, Oregon State could be a great football game. It could be a lot of points scored in this game. Oregon State's improving. Smith has done a tremendous job there because they were an awful program, and now it looks like they might be respectable. Wazoo's they're going to go with a true freshman quarterback, but it's a kid that Rolovich brought with him, basically. He's from Hawaii. He's played his high school career was in what amounts to the Rolovich offense. And the kid's a good player, from what I'm told. We'll find out tomorrow. Money's been firing in on Oregon State. I'm not playing it. I would not be surprised if Wazoo wins the game. Oregon State has to show they've come far enough to know how to win these games, because that's, they competed a lot more last year, but you have to win these games. And Wazoo might know how to win more. And by the way, I don't think I am in the minority on this. I think Mike Leach is a completely overrated coach. I think Washington State can upgrade getting Rolovich.
Interesting. Probably didn't hear that a whole lot when he first got hired, but Rolovich is really good. And again, to have Hawaii, winning and making bowl games at a consistent level with their budget issues is pretty amazing. And by the way, do you looking back on it now, do you like the hire of Todd Graham?
Yeah, I think Graham at this level. Yeah, I think he's all right. He's not a terrible. He's not a superstar coach, but he's okay. The only problem I have is, he might be on the downside of the career. And sometimes, coach, I don't know. It's just there's certain things that's kind of what I don't like. It's just his last stop wasn't great. And maybe it's just a coach going in the wrong direction. And I also don't like coaches going back to their old jobs. Utah State did it with Gary Anderson. That's working out real well. And how about Brady Joke at San Diego State? That was an embarrassment tonight. You get beat like that with a team that lost its starting quarterback on like the first play of the game. And I think the backup can play. We found that out, but you can't lose that game. That program's going backwards. which I know will break the hearts of UNLV fans because we like San Diego State so much.
All right, NFL time. Candy, what do you think of Seattle Buffalo Seahawks 3?
This is an interesting style matchup because Buffalo has not been able to stop the run at all. But Seattle, who used to be the most reliable running team you could find with Pete Carroll, it's actually been letting Russell Wilson throw the ball a little bit more, right? Buffalo's offense has actually been, Josh Allen hasn't been fantastic the last few weeks, but he's still been better than he was last year overall. Tough to trust the Seattle defense in any spot, but at the same time, if you're going to give me what amounts to a field goal game with Russell Wilson and the way the Seattle offense has been able to move the ball, I think that Kansas City kind of showed the way to where if you can play different ways and beat this Buffalo team, I would be on Seattle.
Dave?
Buffalo's just not playing well. They managed to get through last week against the Patriots when Cam Newton put the ball on the floor late in the game. Otherwise, you got overtime or the Patriots win. Seattle, look, I don't think that once it gets to the playoffs, I think Seattle could be a fast out because their defense stinks. And come playoff time, I think you got to have a better defense than they've got. But the offense is scary good. Wilson's playing at an MVP level. And I know it was only San Francisco and beat up San Francisco last week, but they did play well in that football game. They're just in better form than the Bills.
All right. What are we doing, Candy, with Chicago and the Titans as the Bears are 6.5 now against the Titans?
God.
Bears are getting 6.5.
No, right. I know. Trust me, I'm trying to come up with a number in my head that you'd have to give me with Nick Foles to feel comfortable. I've made the mistake a couple of times this year of believing that the quarterback play would at least be stable enough for the Chicago Bears to get something done on defense. Look, on the other side, Tennessee's offense has been not all that far down from what it was last year, but at the same time, my God, the defense isn't stopping anyone. They're not getting any pass rush. Last week, they got to Burrow twice. They didn't sack him once. So for me, I would be off this. I did not actually play this game. If I were playing this game, it would be Tennessee.
I'm off it as well. As of now, I would take the Bears only because of their defense. But the problem is what happens if they fall behind.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Oh, by the way, Rhino. Hey, Coke and you steamhead. What about Cora getting rehired? I love it. Why wouldn't I? And more importantly, the players on the Red Sox are absolutely thrilled. They love it. He's very well liked by the players. So good thing for the Red Sox.
Dave, what do you think about the disciplinary end of it? Time served, it's over, or this is absolute bullshit and it shows that baseball, the teams, the other organizations really didn't care that much about the cheating?
Well, time served for one thing. He also, to me, I thought the coaches and managers were all scapegoats. The players concocted the system, and or at least the hitting coach. That hitting coach did it. He didn't get suspended at all. And we know Hinch hated it, but they were going to do it anyway. And Cora was evidently very upfront about it with Major League Baseball's the powers that be. So you got a year out, and I'm glad he and Hinch are back in. Now the GM is a different story. I think he needs to stay out for a few years.
Candy, I get the feeling you might be on the opposite side of letting Alex Cora right back into his old team. No?
I don't know about letting him in. From the Alex Cora perspective, I get what Dave's saying. Time served, right? Like the guy had a punishment. He served the punishment. It was someone's choice to bring him back in. It just doesn't smell right for me for it to be the same organization when it wasn't just what happened in Houston. It's what happened with the Red Sox too. It's what happened with the whole Apple Watch situation. It's not like the Red Sox and Alex Cora are completely innocent. So yeah, I don't like the looks of it, but I feel like we kind of got past the looks of it when we brought Tony La Russa back. La Russa, to me, that hire stinks more than Hinch and Cora combined. So, we kind of took the edge off bringing back AJ Hinch and Alex Cora by letting Tony La Russa back in the door.
And look, let's face it, baseball and punishments, they're not real severe with this stuff. Justin Turner got a naughty. That's his punishment. Very bad.
And a news dump today. Beautiful.
Yeah. Someone making that comment. I'll open this Pandora's box because a commenter mentioned it. I did mention it on the show today on Cofield and Company. I think the penalty on both of the managers was light. I think the cheating to win the World Series is significant. I personally am against Pete Rose ever getting back in baseball because I also think he bet against his team, and I think he bet as a player. But that said, with what they based the penalty on, I think that actually opens the door in the Pete Rose conversation to let him back in. Am I crazy, Dave? I know you're in support of it.
Oh, yeah.
This was serious cheating, and it seems like baseball doesn't really care.
All right. Besides which, I think it'd be good for the game. Why not? Pete's still extremely well liked by more fans than dislike him. Let's put it that way. I'm not suggesting Pete should be back on the field. He's at this point, I don't think anybody would consider him back on the field in a managerial position. But I'd like to see him back in the game, and I'd like him to be alive for his Hall of Fame induction.
Right.
I don't know if they put him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't have a vote, but if they're gonna, all I can say is if you're gonna do it while the guy's alive. Okay.
Well,
because once you put somebody in after they're dead,
right,
they're not there. Okay, they don't get to enjoy it.
Yep. John Carvelli with the hot take to me. It is actually a hot take if you've heard me over the years on Pete. So I'm not a pro Pete Rose guy. Dave knows him differently.
I'm biased.
I'm totally against it, but this reeks of hypocrisy, and I don't know. And you know what, Dave, you're older than both of us. And listen, commissioners are punching bags all the time. I really can't think of. Am I missing someone obvious? I think Manfred's the weakest commissioner I've seen in my lifetime. Like decision after decision is just, it's bizarre decisions, knee jerk. The discipline sucks.
I don't think he is the commissioner. I think he's strictly there to do whatever the owners tell him to do.
Right.
And he goes, yes, Mr. Steinbrenner, or yes, Mr. Whoever, and collects his enormous salary. I think he's a terrible commissioner.
Candy, am I off?
On Manfred? My God, no. I used to think it was really easy to look at the four commissioners and say, oh yeah, Gary Bettman's the biggest waste of all of them. But Manfred zoomed past him. I mean, it was impressive how quickly Manfred has and this season showed all of it. And what happened today with Justin Turner, get the hell out of here. Are you kidding me? Oh, well, more evidence came to light that his teammates encouraged him to go back out on the field. So what? A half dozen people in the Dodgers organization have the COVID now. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Suppose this, and I thank goodness it doesn't happen, but you do have one Dodger who we know has an underlying condition, which is Kenley Jansen.
Right.
Suppose he got it from Turner. I understand it's just a flu for most of us, yeah. But when somebody's got an underlying condition, it can be a lot worse. And, I don't think Kenley Jansen wants to get COVID, okay, because that could be a little dicey. You just don't do it. That's stupid.
And on the Manfred side of that, to just basically give not even a slap on the wrist, nothing. And he puts out an apology. What the hell does the apology mean? You already did the damage. You did the damage. You were out on the field, and Manfred. It's just a perfect cap for Manfred on this whole fake season, the garbage playoffs that he put together based on a regular season. They kept tweaking the rules, and new teams didn't even play the same amount of games. And it's not like we're talking about college football where there's a difference in one game. We're talking about the St. Louis Cardinals playing like 7 less games than the rest of the league and getting in. The whole thing was insane. So yeah, Steve, when it comes to Manfred, I mean, just look at the progression down from the Bart Giamattis of the world, if we're going to talk about Pete Rose, down to Manfred.
I love the baseball season, by the way, but that's because I had a good season. So
let's move in the NFL to Indianapolis and Baltimore. This has been going down all week. It's now a pick'em. Indy is a pick'em against Baltimore. Dave?
Yeah, Philip Rivers played really well last week. I can't call him Joan Rivers this week. He played really well. And the Ravens, I mean, for all his talent, Lamar Jackson's got to learn to make bigger, to get the ball where it's supposed to go when the game's on the line, which he hasn't been doing. I don't know. I think at pick'em, I might have to look at the Ravens, though.
I'm with you on that, Dave. I actually, I know the numbers are fairly strong, especially if you analytically on the Indianapolis defense. And I know with Darius Leonard back last week, they looked every bit the part. It was Detroit. So, take that for what it's worth. Look, Baltimore's not as good as it was last year, but at the same time, that offense is still very efficient. They move the ball up and down the field against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and at pick, I think it's for me that's Baltimore fairly clearly.
And you get pressure on Rivers because he makes mistakes when you get pressure on him. They didn't get pressure on him last week, and he was really good. I mean, obviously he's still got some talent, but he's not as good as he used to be, and the Ravens need to get after him. So I don't blitz him like crazy.
That's what the Ravens do. Them in Pittsburgh. So.
Kansas City's laying another big number. They've been laying big numbers all season. Believe it or not, they're 6-2 against the spread. It's 10.5. McCaffrey's back on the other side for Carolina. Can Carolina play a decent game, stay within 10, Dave?
Yeah, I think they can compete here. I don't think they're going to win, but I give them a chance to compete. McCaffrey's a big lift, and they didn't get there last week, but Teddy Bridgewater's playing really well. Who would have thought that he could come back to the level he has after that horrible, horrible injury he had a few years ago? I thought that's the end of his career. We'll see him as a broadcaster or something, or a coach. He's played really well.
Candy, you want Carolina?
Remember when just a few minutes ago, Dave was talking about Michigan, Indiana, and saying the numbers say this, and my head tells me this. I think if I trust what I usually look at, I would say, yeah, Carolina can stay within this number. But I don't think we've seen Kansas City at full speed other than that first half against the Ravens earlier this year. They're healthy. The Carolina defense is not particularly good. This to me feels like one of those games where just looking at it on paper, I would say, yeah, I think Carolina can hang around. But if I look up on Sunday and this thing's sitting there at 31-7, it won't surprise me.
Some other games. Someone was just asking in the chat room, Tua against Murray. Both number one, interestingly enough. I don't think that's ever happened in NFL history. Both quarterbacks were on the number one. You've got Miami, kind of a hot team for bettors. A lot of issues at running back. A lot of issues Miami has at running back, and Arizona's holding steady at 4.5, Dave.
I mean, Miami won last week with what they had 8 total yards in the game. It was less than 200. Let's put it that way, which is pretty bad. They were really fortunate last week. You're paying a little bit of a price. I mean, it's a little more expensive than I'd like it to be, but I will probably end up with a bet on the Cardinals here.
Candy?
Absolutely with Dave on this one. This is actually one of the ones I don't love the number, but just in terms of lining these two teams up, as Dave said, Miami last week had a defensive score, they had a special teams score, and then another defensive play that set up the third touchdown. Tua had a QBR of 15 last week. They were outgained by the Rams by 350 yards. That game was a total fluke. I don't think Arizona is necessarily the defense to expose Tua, but at the same time, this Miami defense has been playing really well. I mean, really well over the last few weeks. I don't think talent-wise that they're a top 3 defense the way the numbers say they have been over the last 4 weeks. I think the regression probably sets in a little bit for them here in this spot, and I worry about a team that blitzes and plays man the way that Miami does against Kyler Murray. This could be one of those games where Kyler Murray has 100 rushing yards and a pair of touchdowns. Like, I think Arizona is clearly the better team between these two, and I think we're probably a little high on Miami based on last week.
And the Cardinals had a week off.
Yep.
And they now have film on Tua as well.
Yeah.
Those are nice advantages.
Detroit, Minnesota, it seems like all but certainty that Stafford will play. Golladay will not play. Minnesota is very beat up on the back end of their defense. Minnesota is anywhere 4, 4.5, 5. Believe it or not, in the Super Contest because of Stafford, and it was a Wednesday line where they got to set it. The Lions are getting 5.5 in the Super Contest, but right now, most places you can bet 4. Candy, I'll start with you. What do you do with the Lions in Minnesota?
Pass is what I do. I trusted the Lions a bit last week. I actually had been talking them up a bit, saying I think this team might be performing a little bit below what they have when they had Golladay, when they had Marvin Jones, when it appeared that Patricia was not going to be wedded to giving Adrian Peterson 15 carries a game. No Golladay, and I think no Golladay changes this offense significantly for Detroit. On the other side, what do you make of Minnesota, right? Does the defense play anywhere the way that it did last week? I mean, they don't have a lot of talent on that defense, but they did enough to slow down Rodgers. So, again, you make me jump in. I probably jump in with the Vikings, but it's not one that I want in on.
I'm leaning Lions here. Look, Minnesota's got some injury issues.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Minnesota flattens out a bit off a great win. It's not like they're going anywhere this season. It's not the type of spot I want to lay this many points in. And look, Detroit just plays well enough to lose almost every week, or they find a way to lose. I think it's a 3-point game. So if it is, getting this many points is not the worst bet in the world.
Hometown Raiders go back to a town where they have a ton of fans. Unfortunately, fans can't come in. That would have been a big advantage. They're in LA. They're taking on the Chargers. I know it's really hard to side with the Chargers unless they're getting points. They simply do not win games, and they do not win close games. But the Chargers against the Raiders, I'll take the Chargers. It's actually one of my favorite plays of the week. Am I crazy? Candy?
Not at all. Here's the problem when you want to talk about the Chargers losing leads. I mean, obviously, it's real. They've done it. If there's one team in the NFL that I don't think can chase, it's the Raiders. The Raiders are not built to chase. They don't want to, and they can't. John Gruden wants to control the ball. He wants to run it. He wants to throw short passes. Yes, he opened it up a little bit against the Chiefs, but that's not been shown to be what he wants to do. I have serious concerns about them if Colton Miller truly is out. He has really been the anchor of the offensive line with the injuries that they've had, and that's saying something considering the fact that Colton Miller had a rough rookie season and has definitely improved the last 2 years. So Justin Herbert against this Raiders secondary feels like the biggest mismatch that you're going to see. The Raiders cannot cover anyone at all. I am not at all worried about the Raiders offense suddenly, popping out of a shell the way that it did against Kansas City, because John Gruden has made very clear he treated that game differently than he's treated every other game this year. So I don't put any stock in what happened last week. That was a weather game where the Raiders just made less mistakes than the Browns. I'm with you, Steve, on the Chargers.
And the problem, though, is that it's the Chargers, and you gotta win the game to get paid here. And look, I had Denver last week, and it's a hell of a. I got no shot in this game. I got no shot in this game. Denver's offense stinks. Yep. They're way behind. They're down 3 touchdowns, and I won the game. Now the Chargers can. There's nobody in the league who finds ways to lose games like the Chargers do. And I can't. I mean, the spot says Chargers, but I just I can't put my money on that team. I don't want the Raiders in this spot. It's just not a great scheduling spot for them. But from the neck up, I'd rather be on the Raiders than the Chargers right now.
Who wants to lay 14 with Pittsburgh against Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert? Dave, you want to take the Cowboys plus?
No, I don't want the Cowboys. I'm not going to lay this many. Pittsburgh might come in here flat as a pancake, just knowing, let's just show up and win. But that team is That was horrendous. I feel bad for the DiNucci kid. He's got no business being in an actual NFL game at this point.
No,
but neither do these other two guys.
I mean, we're talking about the fourth and fifth quarterbacks on the Cowboys roster when we talk about, about these two guys, about Gilbert and about Rush. No, I don't want anything to do with it. It's between the fact that Pittsburgh's very public side in the first place and they're laying 14, the spot where I could easily, considering the speed that Pittsburgh offense moves at, and the fact that Roethlisberger is kind of game manager plus at this point, if this were a final of, 17-7, 20-7, it wouldn't be shocking at all. But there's no way you can trust the Cowboys and take the points. No,
if you're in a loser suicide pool, and you haven't used the Cowboys yet, here's the spot to use them, because this be a hell of an upset if they pulled it off. I don't think that's happening.
One last NFL game that we'll hit on: New Orleans and Tampa Bay.
Game of the week. It's a great game. Can't wait. This is going to be fun. Brady and Breeze going against one another. Tampa's playing really well. Saints, quality team, no question about that. Still hurting at wide receiver. I don't think I want to get in Tampa's way right now. This will probably be a game I have no interest in betting unless if I'm going to play it, I'm going to play the over, because everything football is going over this year. Even games that aren't supposed to go over. So just to have something to root for, maybe I'll make a pizza bet on the Bucks. Excuse me, on the over.
Yeah, Cofield, you know what I think of the Bucks. I've been talking about this for a few weeks now. Outside of Kansas City, I think they're the most complete team in the NFL. Both sides of the ball. I actually think the Antonio Brown thing has a shot at working. I don't think he has to be. Yeah, I agree with you, Cook. And I don't think he has to be Pittsburgh Antonio Brown. He's got to be a guy who comes in and plays 30 snaps, gets 5 or 6 catches, and just fills a role for this Tampa Bay team. The defense, like I said, with Tampa has been outstanding. I do think that New Orleans has probably played a little bit below the talent that it has defensively. But when I see Drew Brees questionable with shoulder issues, yeah, he's going to play. He wasn't throwing the ball well in the first place. And if you're going to tell me now that he's hurt against a defense that is fast and can get after him and can make him pay for the fact that he can't throw the ball long, yeah, again, the 4.5 isn't a very comfortable number. It wouldn't be at the top of my list, but I think Tampa Bay is clearly the better team here.
Good notes in the comments section, by the way, which is, I spaced this. There are some weather issues.
It's supposed to be some rain, right?
Yeah. Well, more importantly, the wind.
Yeah.
Rain's not a big deal. Quarterbacks can throw the ball in the rain, but in the wind, that can mess you up. So I might not run to the window to bet that over, but I won't bet an under either. I just won't do it in the NFL. It's just.
Okay.
I mean, you're just taking your life in your hands betting unders this year.
Am I being too hard on Breeze, Cofield?
A little bit. I mean, a lot of it's been the weapons. The mystery of Michael Thomas has been just crazy all year, between the and then discipline issues, and then still holding him out. So I think that's going to change a lot. But I'm not necessarily on the side of the Saints in this one.
What are the fans? Just from an impromptu survey here? From you guys that are listening, are you rooting for or against AB to keep it together in this comeback? I know he's talked to Tony Robbins, I guess, who's now his motivational guy or whatever. That works for me. That stuff's bullshit, but for a lot of people, it does work. So I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying it would never work for me. I can't be hypnotized. I just am one of those people who, I'm obstinate. But maybe for AB it works. I hope it does. I mean, the guy's a great talent. I want to see him in the field. What do you guys think?
Candy, you rooting for him?
Not really rooting for. As anti-hot take, as freezing cold as this is, I'm not going to root against anybody as a human being. If the guy wants to try to put his life back together, then so be it. Good for him if he really is able to pull it off. Why was he the way that he is? I don't know. He's talked about the fact that he wasn't a very good person. He was given opportunity after opportunity and squandered them, but here he has another one because his talent is exceptional. So if he can come back and make something out of himself, then fantastic. But it's not like we're going to forget the things that we've seen about him. We can't forget what he's done before. And, I would love to say, oh, it's a last chance. When you're as talented as this guy is, there's no such thing as a last chance.
By the way, I went to I was forced to go. I don't know, it was probably 20 years ago. The girl I was with, I got to quit smoking, and I just can't do it. She's going to go to a hypnotist. I said, it won't work. I'm one of those. I'm one of those people who's not going to allow him to hypnotize me. So I went, and it failed miserably.
Yeah.
He couldn't put me under, and as a result, I'm still smoking. Son of a bitch.
Yep. Fucked you over.
That's good shit.
Like Candy said, I guess I'm not rooting for him. I just want him to get better and be safe for the community he's in. Because my speech I give all the time. These people do live amongst us, athletes that are troubled, and the last thing you want them doing is going off freaking rails and T-boning you at a an intersection or something. Because he's a guy who clearly has ups and downs, and doesn't seem to feel like there's an end of the road. So like, where does the accountability kick in? To this point, it hasn't with him. So we'll see.
Well, and the other thing is that he is so much fun to watch because he's just an incredibly talented receiver. You can make a good argument that when I don't know what'll happen now because he's been away for a while, but when he left, I don't think there was anybody better in the game.
Yeah. All right, guys, I'll go around the room here. We've been talking about the election all week long, so I got to get your takes on what's gone down post-election with the counts, with the comebacks. No one expected the comebacks, which is one of the biggest misnomers ever. If you're following this, you knew there was a chance there was going to be millions and millions and millions of mail-in ballots that were going to be hard, or it would be an arduous task to process them. The numbers were going to change. So, Dave, what do you think about the reaction? What do you think about the tactics of DJT, Donald Trump?
Guess fully expected him.
Yeah.
He's not the type to say, yeah, okay. He's going to be kicking and screaming, and he's going to go down fighting hard. But look, all I can tell you is this: I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say. And I missed the show with Justin. I wish I hadn't because I wanted to hear what he had to say. But from the sound of it, they don't have a legal leg to stand on, and it's that's just the way. And as far as mail-in ballots go, better get used to it. In fact, I heard one of the I don't know who it was on one of the networks. Oh, it was on Fox, on the five show or whatever it is. Yeah. And one of the guys that was on the panel said, basically, you better get used to it because. This is not going to be a one-time thing. It's more convenient, and he basically said, hey, the Republicans better catch up on this. And he's right. Yep. I mean, things changed. I maintained, if I'm alive 20 years from now, nobody will be voting in person. There'll be no such thing. It'll be a relic of the past. It'll go the way of the horse and buggy because the technology will be improved at that point where you won't have to go. And they're not just going to throw open polling places just to honor tradition. It'll be gone. Well, maybe have 3 or 4 more elections with us in-person voting, and that's it. And I don't anticipate ever voting in person again. Why bother? I can fill my ballot out at home, take my time doing it, make some educated choices as far as local things like the judicial races. We're a state that has elections for judges. This was the most well-informed ballot I've ever cast because I actually took the time to research all these judges and went with the choices that I thought were best. And I've never done that before. I just basically, in those elections, I just skipped the judges because I didn't know anything about it. And I didn't do any research before I got to the polls, and I would have forgotten it anyway, unless I took a notebook with me. So they're here to stay.
Dave, what's I'll let you answer in a second, Candy, but I wanted to data mine Dave here. Dave, what was the first election you voted in? I was trying to do the math, and I was thinking if you actually got involved early, did you actually vote in 72?
Yes.
Yep, there you go. Was that the first time you voted?
Yes.
See?
Yeah, I turned 18 in 71, and I don't recall there being an election that year. So 72 would have been my first, and I voted for the guy who got absolutely annihilated, and it was a good vote because the other guy got kicked out of office.
As it turned out, yeah, he was the primo number one scumbag. How did you feel like at that age? How did you feel that you were about being on the side of the loser and really getting freaking smacked around?
I didn't care.
Yeah.
My age group was probably the only group that McGovern won.
Yeah.
He won that age group. He won the 18 to whatever 25, but he got absolutely destroyed by everybody else.
Yeah.
But actually, I lived in a household where there were 3 McGovern votes.
Okay.
Because my dad thought Nixon was an asshole, and he was right.
It's funny with all the tactics and the crazy words this week, and people talking about I don't know. I saw we were talking after the show today, and someone was, I guess Tucker Carlson did some bit tonight on socialism, and we're all going to be forced to be the same, and I was like, God damn, man. The same games were played from when I first started voting, right? And I'm younger than Dave, but I'm getting older. The presidential election that I voted in was 88, but 92, I remember maybe it was like driving back like from school, from college, and I remember being in the car and Bill Clinton had won, and this guy Steve Malzberg is doing radio on WOR, and the fucking guy is talking about the devastation of the election and switching to a Democratic president. And he over and over again, his theme was, and this is like within a week of the result, his theme was, we're going to lock down, this guy's going to institute martial law. And I just remember as a young person, I'm like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, this is the realm I'm entering as a voter, that the guy who, didn't get his guy in there is talking about martial law. And it's just amazing. I was going to say, like, how little progress we've made. We've gone even further back. It's nuts that kind of language is just is crazy. I will say, I think the encouraging thing, and I'm not guaranteeing anything is going to happen, but President Trump has gone, so scorched earth that you're starting to see the Republicans went along with him. I think it was really damaging. I think it was really stupid on their part. But Candy, are you seeing some of them finally break to the point where they're like, all right, that's enough. Like, we can't be along for this ride. Now it's slow, but at least we're seeing some trickling. The big guys, of course. I didn't see Mitch McConnell say anything. Lindsey Graham is going to be...
Actually, Mitch McConnell...
Did he say something like, shut the fuck up? It
wasn't shut the fuck up, but... Yeah. It wasn't right. He didn't... Let's just say he didn't do a Newt Gingrich or a Ted Cruz or a Rudy Giuliani.
Right.
He took the middle. So there are 3 approaches going on right now. There's guys like Romney who have been the critics who have been out there saying, "Hey, we need to count the votes." Right? There's the Trump style of just verbal diarrhea and see what happens, and then there have been McConnell types in the middle who said we need to count. They're using this parsed language of we need to count all the legal votes. Well, yeah, they're all legal votes. There's been no evidence of any voter fraud, so they're all legal votes. So, when it comes to the idea of mail balloting, Dave, you're exactly right. Like, you're exactly right. Oregon, Utah, there are states that have been doing this for years. There are states that have been voting exclusively by mail for years. The process works. It has always worked. And the idea that's been out there of there's a comeback, bullshit, there's been a comeback. No, this is just the way it works. It's only Friday. There are still votes coming in. Normally we can call it because the margins in certain states are wide enough that it doesn't matter how many votes come in late. You still count them to get the final margin, but you can make a call. So, what's going on right now is fucking dangerous. It's fucking dangerous.
Well, it's just that what bothers me is the uneducated and just flat stupid arguments that are being made. One of the ones is here in Nevada, where people are saying, well, yeah, but look, there's people that don't live here anymore that are voting here. Yeah, they're almost all college students who still they're not living here, but they still use their parents' address. Yep. And people in the military, who are in military bases all over the country and maybe other places as well, who still use their parents' home address. And those are.
Yeah, actually, Justin Watkins said it last night when he read through the list of names. He said the majority were military members, and they've simply been relocated to another base out of state. Well, they have a home base; their home address is in Nevada. So, I mean, when you start to dive deeper on that, you're like, again, are we pro-military or not? Do we want to invalidate people in our country? Their votes are illegal? Are you kidding me?
Guys, the merit of the lawsuits doesn't mean a damn thing. The whole idea here is just run this thing out long enough to cause some confusion and hope that eventually it gets to the House, which is the most ridiculous long con that he's tried to run. But look, when it comes to what's going on right now, when I say it's dangerous and what really, really scares the shit out of me, hi Herschel. Sure, let's just do it over again. No, those guys who drove up from Virginia to Philly as soon as he got done with that ridiculous briefing, and they've got the guns in the car and they're going to try to shoot up the Philadelphia Convention Center. That's the shit that's ridiculous. That's insane. That is innocent people who are just trying to do a job for democracy, and you're stirring up people who they showed have met him multiple times. That kind of stuff is, no matter who you voted for, that is fucking ridiculous.
Not as ridiculous what Herschel tweeted.
Maybe not.
Jeez. Yeah. I mean, I like Herschel, but I gotta check for. Well, you can't check for CTE while anybody's alive. And I'm not wishing any ill will on him. But man, that is just one of the most meat-headed things I've ever seen.
Yeah, Shannon Sharp went after him today. That was fun.
That was good.
And Herschel's he's good friends with Trump. Yeah. So I understand he's taking up for his buddy. I got no problem with that. But just, you know what? If you want to take up your buddy, remain his friend after he leaves Washington, because it's not going well for him. But he'll either own or start. I think he'll buy OAN. And that'll become his new vehicle. Yeah. We have not heard so if you're a Trump supporter, he's not going anywhere. He's just not going to be president anymore. But he's going to be extremely visible, and he will remain extremely visible in the 2022 and 2024 elections. And look, I might not be on that side of things. I'm clearly not, but I think, what is it called? Trumpism? It's not going anywhere. Okay, anybody who thinks that this is the end of it is crazy. Okay, right. He's got a huge base of supporters.
Oh, that's
and it went up. Okay, oh, yeah. it went up.
Dave, this is for people who are anti-Trump. This was a loss.
Yes,
I mean, you get the short-term victory with Joe Biden, but the amount of support Trump got. And that, if we say, if the numbers continued into 2024 on the presidential election, whatever, Trump's going to finish with like 71 million votes. 60 million of those votes are sticking with him. They'll ride out.
Yeah.
And they're going to get even more fired up. His family will be out there. Like you said, he may start a network, buy a network. They'll be a central part of U.S. politics. Absolutely, for the next 3.5 years.
I will tell you right now, and I'm not saying this to be funny. I would not be shocked at all. Tucker Carlson is very much in the mix as the potential Republican nominee in 2024. I might not like him, but a lot of people love the guy. He's a polished speaker. Okay? I mean, he actually would be better on TV and better in front of a microphone than Trump, who fumbles all over the place and is not a good speaker. Tucker Carlson is. And I think there's every chance that he's going to enter the world of politics and be a major player. I don't dismiss these guys.
Steve, you talked about the idea of where Republicans are going now and whether they're falling away from him, et cetera, et cetera. You'll find the real answer to all of that in the Georgia runoff, because the fact that the control of the Senate is going to come down to those two races in Georgia,
yeah.
That changes the future of everything. Because if McConnell is still in the Senate there to, you know, keep a lot of these ideals going, then yeah, you get a gridlocked presidency and not a whole lot gets accomplished. And then the, you know, the whole Trumpism idea is back on the ballot. But at the same time, if the Democrats take control of the Senate and some things change in terms of policies, then, you know, I'm not saying it goes away. It sure as shit does not go away. I don't even know if it's so much a loss if you're anti-Trump as it is a wake-up call and a warning sign. Like, hey, it wasn't just this guy. Like, the ideas that he put out there, a lot of people agree with them. And if you don't like those ideas, then you got to do something about it.
Yeah, and the Democrats better come up with some younger and more viable candidates.
Yeah.
Right now, they've got, you know, Mayor Pete. It's probably the lead guy now. You need more of that. I mean, and I'm not, you know, I mean, I was pretty open about it. I voted against Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. And I'm admittedly biased. For those who don't know, I have not liked Trump going back to the 80s when he fucked up the USFL. I didn't like him when he was a liberal Democrat, which he was for most of his life. Well, he's changed sides more often than I've lost count of how many times he's flipped.
Right.
And I just don't like the guy. So basically, I would vote for one of Steve's cats ahead of Trump.
Only one of the outdoor cats. Only one of the ones that's really out there getting things done.
The real fighters. The real fighters.
Yes.
Yep.
But anyway, it's over. And I think the best move for the Republicans, the smart move at this point, is to distance themselves. Just say, okay, we'll regroup. We're in great shape anyway, and we're going to crush you in the midterms in 2022. And there's a good likelihood they will have great success because, you know, COVID isn't going anywhere soon. The economy's probably going to take a bit of a downward hit, I would think. It's just natural to think that way. And the Democrats are going to have a steep hill to climb in 2022, in my non-biased opinion, as far as that goes.
I mean, and Dave, what we haven't even gotten into yet is the redistricting that's coming in 2020 with the results of the census. Yeah. So when we get into this in 2021, you know, you talk about the Senate and the House districts that are going to get drawn. It's only going to get stronger in terms of the Republicans. If you look at how they did in the state legislatures this time around, they're going to control more redistricting processes than they did in 2010. So they're going to draw the districts that, you know, look like these weird flower shapes and shit to make sure that they have the population where they want it for their districts. And, you know, they might do very well just based on that in 2022.
That's just part of the political game.
Yeah, part of the process.
Whatever party, that's not a Republican thing. Whatever party's in power, when it comes to redistricting,
the Democrats do the same thing.
Yeah. Of course they do.
All right, guys, good way to close out the week. Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks, Candy. Thanks to the audience. You can check out the show audio-wise too on our podcast sites like Spotify and iTunes and iHeart. And we're back on Monday at the 10:30 slots. Have a good weekend. And if you joined us late, we had a bunch of picks early in the show, so go back and listen for some of the picks. Good week. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.